Hey team, we're talking this week all about the epistles of the New Testament, the letters that were written to churches and to individuals that make up the predominant amount of the New Testament. And Paul wrote a lot of these, or most of these, but Peter and John and others were also have written some of these. And so here's the thing that I always want to look at, and this is really with any Bible passage when we look at it, but particularly these, that the context really matters. That they're written in a certain time, in a certain context, by a certain person to a certain audience, most of them for a certain occasion. Most of them it wasn't, hey, checking in on you, just seeing how you're doing. Most of it is, hey, I've heard this is going on and here's how we correct it. For instance, in 1 Corinthians, which I'm teaching through and we're teaching through on Wednesday nights, 1 Corinthians is written to address several issues, including abuses of the Lord's Supper, sexual sin, and other things that had crept into the practice. And so in this case, Paul writes, here's the issue, and then he addresses it with a solution from the gospel, how the gospel addresses that to conclude that. And so as you're reading it, that's really what we want to look at this week is, okay, here's these epistles that are written in a certain context to a certain group of people for a certain purpose by a certain individual. How on earth do I connect that with my life in 2021 as a teenager or as an adult, as a follower of Jesus? And honestly, I don't think we have to work too hard to do that. There's plenty of overlap. The sinful nature of man has not changed so much in 2,000 years as we may think it has. And so there's a lot of practical things. And so in all of those, we can look for, like we give you every week, a character of God. As we read through these, maybe help your students understand, okay, where's God's character on display here? Where is the doctrinal things that we can learn from this? Where are the things that apply directly into our life? I mean, obviously, if there's a passage about eating meat sacrificed to idols, that's probably not something that HEB is practicing in, okay? But there's other things, right? There's other principles that we can take up, right? Not giving any appearance of sin, not tolerating sin in our lives, and stuff like that. And so, as you read the epistles, and as we attempt to help our students understand it, we've given you 3 passages, and they kind of point to different truths about God's word. And so maybe use a little bit of your hermeneutical skill there as you read through those. Just kind of pick apart a little bit of what that's all about and what each of those passages is about. But overall, we want to say, look, the thing about God is that He has given us His word. Right? His attribute is that He is a guide to us. He has communicated to us. Right? He's given us His word. He doesn't just leave us out here blindly. All right, He's given this word to help direct us. And then, as we looked at this doctrine, is that the Bible is God's word, that it is living and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. Right? It is able to separate joint and marrow. It's able to separate the attitudes and the thoughts of men. That this word that was written is not just a stale book that was for a church in Corinth or in Philippi or Ephesus. Right? But these letters are meant to be inspired by God, to be read by the church, and for us to live out the principles in them. All right? And that's our challenge. We've got to be living it out. We can't just tell the others to do it. We need to be living out the truths of that word in our own lives and our own hearts. And then part of what we're doing is teaching, but discipleship is sometimes better caught than taught. And what I mean by that is sometimes they're going to see what you're doing before they hear what you're saying, right? And I encourage you to set the example in your memory verse, exhibit that in front of your students, and keep loving them, keep pressing forward, keep staying in contact with them. Love you guys. Bye.